What is up, guys? Marcellus Williams, aka TheSwolefessor, here to educate you on health, fitness, social well-being. Today, guys, we're talking about supersets and drop sets.
I am the greatest.
Someone with color! Someone with color! Someone with dash! Someone with color!
Alright, guys, so this is a fairly common topic. I get asked about this a lot. Basically, it's a question usually along the lines of, hey man, are drop sets effective? Are supersets effective? You know, everything along those lines. So I'm basically going to break down, guys, what each one is, the pros of them, and then the cons of them, and then based off, you know, what your goals are, if you should be incorporating them or not. So, getting right into it. Let's start with our superset. So, for those of you who don't know, I'm sure most of you do, but for those of you who don't know, a superset is basically where you pair two exercises together. So you do one exercise, and without resting, you immediately go to another. And there's two ways you can go about this. There's the superset where you're working the exact same muscle group, and there's a superset where you're working an antagonistic muscle group. So, for example, a superset where you're working the same muscle group would be, you do 3 sets of 10, and let's say you have 3 sets of 10 with squats, right? And you have 3 sets of 10 on leg press. So a set's gonna be 10 reps on squat, then you immediately go and you do 10 reps on leg press, right? So working the exact same muscle group. So that's one example of a superset when you're working the same muscle group. Then there's the antagonistic superset, where let's say I do a set of 10 on bench press, then I immediately go and do a set of 10 on lat pull down. So antagonistic because my chest is antagonistic to my back, opposite muscle group. So those are the two ways that you can use supersets. Now, as far as like the pros and cons. So first of all, I'm gonna start by saying that there's a little bit of research on superset, guys. Not as much as you would think, but there's a little bit on it. What they found is in terms of antagonistic muscle groups, like for example, if you do the bench and the pull-ups, there is a slight increase on strength on the second movement, meaning like by 5%, no more than that. Like the most they found is like 5%, meaning like if you do bench first and then you go and do the pull-ups, that you might perform a little bit better on those pull-ups than what you would have had you just, you know, done the pull-ups without the bench press. Now the thing is, what they found, guys, is that isn't due to the superset itself. It's simply due to the fact that that muscle actually got quite a bit of activation already from the bench press. So it's almost like you were more warmed up for the pull-ups. So you get that same benefit, guys, if let's say you're on an upper lower split, right? And on your upper body day, you have 4 chest movements and 4 back movements. So instead of doing your 4 chest movements in a row and then your 4 back movements in a row, let's say you go chest, back, chest, back. So you do all 3 sets of 10 on bench, and then you go do all 3 sets of 10 on pull-ups, then you go do all 3 sets of 10 on, say, shoulder, incline dumbbell press, and all 3 sets of 10 of like some type of row, right? You get that same benefit, guys, even if you don't superset. And the reason being, guys, for the mere fact that even like when you're bench pressing, assuming you're bench pressing correctly with your scapula retracted, your back's already getting a little bit of activation, or vice versa. If you are doing pull-ups and then you go and do bench press, which is why quite a few people actually do some form of pull-up to warm up for their bench press, because it gets their back nice and warm, which is gonna help them having that better base when they're bench pressing. That's where that 5% benefit comes from. So the only real benefit of doing it in the superset form, where you go like from one right to the other without any type of rest, is that you can do more volume in less amount of time. In the sense of, like I said, if you have 4 chest movements and 4 back movements, you don't want to necessarily be in the gym for like, you know, an hour and a half, 2 hours. You can superset those movements, and that works in the sense of assuming that you're still structured, you know, in the sense of, okay, 3 sets of 10 on bench, then 3 sets of 10 on this lat pull down with a certain amount of weight, and you still have it structured, and whenever you get 3 sets of 10 on, you know, that movement you increase, then that still works in terms of progressive overload. The problem comes in, guys, is, okay, your energy levels. Even though you're working 2 different muscle groups, you still get to the point where maybe you can increase on one movement, but that increase on that movement taxes you and makes it hard to increase on the other movement. So you might get more bang for your buck by just focusing on one movement at a time. Unless, like I said, you're someone where you just have a bunch of movements, you're trying to get through all of them, then it does help you. So for people that really train high volume, supersets are very effective in that way. But then it comes down to, once again, what are your goals? If your goal is really focusing on just getting stronger on specific movements, it's best to focus on one movement at a time. If your goal is just to get as much volume in as you can, then supersets are great. But once again, that's with the antagonistic superset. In terms of using supersets where, like, let's say you do one chest movement, then immediately do another chest movement, there's not anywhere near as much benefit, for the mere fact that if you were to focus on one of those movements at a time, like let's say you do your 3 sets of bench press and then your 3 sets of incline dumbbell press, you're going to more optimally be able to progress on both of those movements, which means you're going to eventually be able to more optimally increase on the bench press and get stronger on that, and then on the incline dumbbell press and get stronger on that. And that's going to be more beneficial than supersetting them, because it's like, okay, I'm doing my bench press and my incline dumbbell press back to back, so one of them's already tiring me out for the other. So it's like I do my first set of bench, feel good, but then that tires me out for my first set of incline dumbbell press. But then that's gonna tire me out for my second set of bench press. So even though you're getting more volume in, it kind of hinders you in terms of progressive overload for the mere fact that, simply put, you're taxing yourself out before you're fully recovered, so you can't give the most effort into each set on each exercise. So in terms of supersets, the best way to go about it, if you are going to do it, is the antagonistic muscle group way, because even though, yes, you're still using your energy for both movements, at least you're working different muscle groups. Whereas if you're doing the same muscle group, once again, it's great if you're just trying to get more volume in, but we're keeping in mind that the main goal should always be to get stronger on these movements, to move more weight. Then even if it takes you a little bit more time and you want the volume, just do the movements separately in order to move up more effectively on them. That's just, from an optimum standpoint of your goal being to get stronger. So that's pretty much the general gist of supersets. Like I said, the main pros of that is you can get a lot more volume done in less time, and that's kind of pretty much it, because the cons come down to you don't have as much energy to put into each individual exercise. And then the fact is, the benefit, like I said, the 5% strength benefit that you may get on the second move, if you're doing the antagonistic muscle group, you get that same benefit if you just go back and forth between chest, back, or quad, hamstring. You don't have to necessarily superset them, just make that be the order of your exercises in that way. And as far as hypertrophy, there's no known studies to show that there's any benefit or increase of hypertrophy of doing supersets, like your chest and your back together versus just working your chest and back separately. There's none on that yet. So getting into the drop set. So for those of you who don't know, a drop set would be where you're on the same exercise, but let's say you've got 315 on bench press and you're doing as many reps as you can with that. So let's say you get 5. Then you're gonna immediately take a plate off on each side, go to 225, get as many reps as you can with that. Take a plate off, you're at 135, get as many reps as you can with that. So a drop set is basically doing the same exercise, but you lower the weight each time, so you keep trying to get more and more reps. So there's 2 ways that you can go about it. Some people, what they do is they still have rest between sets, right? So they get as many reps as they can with a certain amount of weight, and then they'll rest, and then they'll lower the weight, do the same thing again. Some people, they just go back, they just keep going down, but the way they usually do that is they'll do their 3 normal sets, right? Like say 3 sets of 10 with 150 pounds on lat pull down. They'll do their normal 3 sets of 10. Then on their 4th set, they'll do the drop sets. On the 4th set, after they get as many as they can with the 150 pounds, they'll go down to 140, keep going, down to 130, keep going, go down to 120, keep going, and for as long as what they like. Now, in terms of drop sets, the first way, guys, isn't really all that optimum, once again, because it's very hard to have structured progressive overload when you train that way. Like if you come in and you do a certain amount of weight for 1 set and then you just drop it every set, well, it's just not as structured, because it's obviously you're gonna get more reps with the lighter weight, but it's kind of like this. Coming in and getting, let's say you get 12 with 150 on the lat pull down, then you drop the weight to 140 and you get 14, you keep dropping it. Yeah, you're getting more reps in, you're getting that volume, but you have to ask, is that as efficient as just doing 3 sets with the heaviest weight that I can do for all those sets and just building it up? What sounds more optimal or beneficial in terms of strength and muscle mass? If I do, try to work up to 3 sets of 10 with 150, whenever I get that, I bump that up to 160 and try to get 3 sets of 10. Or if I do the 150 as many reps as I can, 140 as many reps as I can, 130 as many reps as I can, you get to the point where, yeah, you're gonna keep getting more reps, but are you really pushing that working threshold the way you could be if you just stick with the heaviest weight you could do for a certain amount of sets and reps? So that's something to consider. For me personally, I believe the best way to go about your drop sets is going to be the second option, where you still do your 3 normal sets. Like I said, 3 sets of 10 with 150 pounds, but then you come in and do a 4th set where you do a drop set. That can be more beneficial because you're still focused on your structured progressive overload, right? Because let's say you get your 3 sets of 10 with the 150, then that means the next time you come in and do it, you'll go to 160 for those 3 sets. But on that 4th set, doing that drop set is just gonna get you a little bit more volume, a little bit more burnout of that muscle, because you've already done your 3 structured sets. So at that point, anything extra you do, it's just gonna be more volume, which can actually, in a sense, help you with your progressive overload, because so long as you're still moving up on those main sets, that 4th set is just giving you more volume. So it's one thing if you keep using the same weight and reps and then you just keep trying to increase on that 4th set with the burnout, trying to last longer, that won't be as beneficial. But so long as you're progressively overloading on those main 3 sets, that 4th set is it's no different than if I do my 3 sets of bench press and every time I get 3 sets of whatever reps, I increase the weight, but then I do as many pushes as I can at the end. That's fine. That's more of just once again getting in that extra burnout, that extra volume. Is it necessary though? And does doing that little bit of extra volume on that fourth set actually give you any type of extra hypertrophy or strength gains? There's no research on it, guys. There's not a whole lot of research on it showing that there's a benefit to it. There's been studies and tests done on it, but nothing that's shown us any significant difference between the person that just does the 3 sets of 10 and then moves on to the next movement versus the person that does the 3 sets of 10, then does a burnout set and goes to the next movement. There's virtually almost no difference. So the best way to go about it is, if you want to do that just because you feel like it's working for you, you're enjoying it, you're having fun with it, that's fine. But don't feel like you're missing out on anything if you don't do it, guys. Because at the end of the day, that's the one thing that science has shown us for a fact, is you get a lot more bang for your buck when you have focused sets, reps with a certain amount of weight, and then just focus on increasing that. Like I said, if you're somebody who's not even training very high volume, let's say you're on like a full body routine, right? And you only have like one compound movement per muscle group, or you're on push-pull legs, right? And you're coming in and you've got, like, you know, on your push day, it's all chest and tricep work, on your pull day, all back and bicep work. With those guys, there's really no reason to do a bunch of supersets and drop sets, just because you want to put as much effort as you can on each of those movements individually. Like, you're working your chest only regardless on your push day, right? Like your 4 compound movements would be your chest, then a couple of isolation moves for your triceps, shoulders, etc. So just focus on those movements individually, on getting stronger on all of those movements, versus, okay, I'm going to superset my first 2 chest movements and then my second 2 chest movements. You're not going to perform as optimally on any of those as you could. So there's really no need to do that. And then the same thing with the drop sets. Like, yeah, you do your 3 sets of bench and then you do a 4th drop set, you know, where you just burn out, but then that's just going to hinder you on your second chest movement for that day. So for things like full body, push-pull legs, there's really not as much benefit to it. Now, if you're doing, like I said, an upper-lower split on that upper body day, you have like 4 chest movements and 4 back movements, by all means, if you want to superset it just to, you know, so you can kill time, go for it. So that way you're not in there for 2 hours. That makes more sense. But even with that, then you have to just kind of ask yourself, okay, maybe I have too much volume in this day. Once again, I don't bash high volume training. I enjoy it myself from time to time, but it's just a matter of like understanding that weekly volume is what matters more so than daily volume. So just keep that in mind when it comes to deciding if you're going to use supersets, drop sets, etc. But the fact is, guys, at the end of the day, whether you do or don't, so long as you still have some form of structured progressive overload, then you're gonna be just fine. That's what it comes down to, guys. A lot of people, they get so obsessed with supersets, drop sets, and they're just burning out, but they're not getting stronger on any of these movements. They're just trying to do more and more reps, see how long they can last, and that's not gonna be as beneficial as just focusing on gradually increasing the weight on the bar. That's what's gonna help you the most in terms of just getting stronger and with your muscular hypertrophy. Once again, this isn't to say you shouldn't do drop sets or supersets. It's just understanding that, once again, guys, it's another tool to be utilized, and you have to use it in as efficient a way as possible. Don't just think it's the end all be all of gains, because once again, it's not. All my first few videos, guys, I've given you everything you need to make gains. Like, that's it. Anything else is just a tool to be utilized at this point. So that is pretty much it, guys, for supersets and drop sets. I hope that I made that very clear. If you guys have any questions, you already know, leave a comment down below. Let me know what your questions is. If you enjoyed the video, leave a comment down below. Let me know that you did. Like the video, share, subscribe. Keep it simple, specific, scientific. I'll catch y'all later.
I am the greatest.
Someone look color. Someone look color. Someone with dash.